What's going on, people?
Hey.
I'm so sorry. You guys, welcome back to another episode of No Clue. I'll tell y'all what I was just laughing at in a minute. Welcome back to another episode of No Clue. We miss you guys. It's been a long week. I don't know if y'all was here for last week's episode, but for the record, I normally get in trouble once a season. Arteria got us in a lot of trouble last week, so I just want to put that out there. We have never had our production manager have to come on and get us together that many times. So congratulations, Arteria. You now are the queen of getting us in trouble.
Patty.
Do you hear my husband say the lies?
Do we really want to go into what your husband said last week? Because we could talk about the fluff.
Okay, on the next we're gonna keep going.
But
that
before
part.
we get this show started, guys, we do want to send out our prayers and condolences to the Cannon family on the loss of your son Zen. Our prayers and hearts go out to you, sir. We could never imagine what it's like to lose a child so young. So just know our prayers, hearts, and our prayers and condolences are with you and your family. So guys, keep the Cannon family in prayer. Let's do a weekly check-in. How was everybody's week? Terry?
Mine is busy because I have a grown lady turning 16 Sunday.
Woo, that's right. My Sagittarius.
Well, trying to get her situated and working like crazy, and then she have surgery next week as well. So yeah, busy.
Surgery.
Yep.
We're gonna talk offline. Ain't nobody told me nothing. So hard to find good help.
Oh hush.
DJ, how was your week?
Yeah, my week has been super busy. So y'all know I missed y'all. I wasn't here last week. I had to do a World AIDS Day panel, but it was good. You know, I heard y'all did y'all thing and went a little off course, but I'm back to keep us in line. But no, I had a super busy week. Y'all see the kid got back, getting himself back right. Whoop, 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 no more hair. But just doing some things, changing it up, being back to me. Had a really good weekend. Stay busy, had a lot of fun. You know, it's always a good time when you get to put on some clothes and have a good time. So
yeah.
I hear you. So, in case y'all didn't know, your boy celebrated his birthday.
Oh,
what you say? What did Arteria say? I know she didn't say what I think she said. I'm not getting old. I'm getting fine like wine. I'm getting better with time.
Okay.
Yes, to quote the prophetess, Lil Kim.
That was Lil Kim.
She said, like a bottle of fine wine, I just get better with time. From hardcore to notorious, studying my flow and still, but I can't say the rest of that on air.
So we're gonna agree to disagree with that because she didn't get better with time. Like the Kim I grew up with and the Kim we got now, those two different. Moving right along. So for my
Amen.
birthday, I went to a performance. I forgot the name of it. It starts with a T, and it's like Tasmanian Devil or Tasmanian Man or Tanaman or Titanium something. It's T something. But let me tell y'all something. This show was like Cirque du Soleil meets a burlesque show meets a hilariously funny show. Like it was amazing. It was Tientro Zinzani. Did I say that right, y'all? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Is that right?
Like
Zenzani.
we can see what you looking at
Oh,
to
Teatro
help.
Zenzani.
yeah, that Mama said, Mama saw Mumaku saw. But it was real amazing. So the man pulled me up on the stage and made me dance in front of all these people. There was this lady on there. Her name is Liz. She was the Cleopatra. When I tell you that lady sang to me silly, I just want her to give me a good old gospel number. I would have shouted the whole theater down. It was amazing. Then my company picnic, my company Christmas party was that Saturday, and it was so much fun. In case you guys didn't know, I am a part of the alphabet community. I know, looking at this beauty, you would never think that, right?
Oh
Um,
my
but my
God.
my my team,
Right.
well, you know what, whatever. They welcomed me. We had so much fun. And then today we made 166 bags to give out to the homeless. They got a $50 gift card, a lottery ticket, socks,
Oh.
gloves, a blanket, a skull cap, and like I thought we was giving it to like our people, and we gave it to the homeless. Y'all, I was so motivated and moved. So my week has been a true phenomenal blessing. New doors are opening for me, new opportunities, new advancements, just new things. I have a new outlook on life. I have new people holding me to a standard. So like y'all, I am on one. Hey Brandon, how you doing? God bless you, man of God. God bless you.
What up, sir?
So that was my week. Okay, so y'all, I know y'all heard me talk about my week because I can talk about my week. It's my birthday. I look good for 39. All right, I am 39 years old and I look good because everybody at my
Oh,
job was like, "You do not look 30." I am not old. Your husband's old, Arteria. Now that's why he got wrinkly balls. All right, I'm not gonna say anything
All
else.
right. Thank you, Brandon, for the
I don't want to get in
compliment. I
trouble.
appreciate it.
But at this point, thank you, Brandon. I'm accepting gifts Thanksgiving through New Year's. Except for Christmas Day, Jesus get his own day.
Right.
Um, but we're gonna get ready for our Say Wet for the evening because Say Wet is about to be lit. So let's talk
Say
about Say Wet.
what?
All
Well,
right,
no.
y'all. So tonight's Say What is gonna be something simple because we have our Department of System and Processes is back, so we gotta be, last week we had fun. Y'all know last week the show was amazing. We had so much fun last week. We laughed, we joked,
we got in
we got in
trouble.
trouble several times. But today, so our Say What today is gonna be a simple game of Never Have I Ever. So get you something to drink. Get you a drinky drink. If you watching, get you a drinky drink. I'm gonna ask random questions. If you have never done it, you're good. But if you've done it, take that drink.
Where's
Y'all
yours?
ready? I gotta take
I
off
don't
my
like this game.
Where's it?
King Tut.
Where's yours? Okay, because we didn't see that. We all lifted a cup.
Oh, okay, let's do this. And because of last week, we gonna keep this PG
10.
12. Right? It's gonna be real PG. We might get a little PG 13. We ain't gonna get too bad, all
I'll
right?
take that.
All right, y'all ready? Never have I ever gone skinny dipping.
Listen, I told y'all, all my stories start with Picture It, New Orleans, 2003. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Tears a good girl. Never have I ever faked being sick to stay home from work. Okay. Never have I ever peed in a swimming pool.
Ew. Ew. Let me guess. Y'all went with the lot that the chlorine is gonna make it okay.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay, next one.
Okay.
I have
Never
questions,
have
but
I
that's
ever
later.
cheated on a test.
No.
Child, math is not my forte.
Y'all love math.
Never have I ever had a one night stand. Mm.
See there? See there? Rakia 2 in.
Never have I ever read my partner's text messages without their knowledge.
No, I ain't got time for that.
No, I
We might have to end this game quick. I'm running out of stuff to drink.
haven't done that.
Never have I ever been hospitalized for something other than giving birth. That's a lightweight one. Never have I ever had sex in another country. Okay, let me stop drinking. Let me find something I ain't got to drink on.
Take it to another country.
That's the point. You're not supposed to get.
Right, I'm gonna be drunk. Never have I ever been nude in public.
Oh well. New beaches count, so
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
never did that.
Never have I ever had sex in a public place.
Oh God. Right, Rakia, like goodness, he gonna need the whole. He should just brought the bottle.
Never have I ever hooked up with somebody 10 years older or younger than me.
No, I ain't never went that far. Not 10 years.
We finna get DJ drunk. Never have I ever convinced my friend to dump their partner. Oh. Never have I ever been somebody else's alibi.
No, I didn't know about that.
Child, y'all don't know my sister. Never have I ever lied to the police.
No, I don't mess with them.
that part.
Okay, let me find something. Never have I ever called my partner by the wrong name.
That'll get you stabbed in your throat.
I wouldn't be sitting here if I did.
You hear me? That will get you stabbed.
My bad. Never have I ever used a fake ID.
Nope.
Terry, you're a good girl. Never have I ever lied about my age.
Nope.
Damn. DJ, you need to drink behind that one. Never have I ever flashed somebody.
This the last one.
I know.
The last one, all right. Let me think of a good one.
No, that was the last one. We got to move on.
No, this is the last one.
No.
Never
that was the
have I
last-
ever urinated or defecated on myself over the age of 20.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, there's
so-
one. I got one.
I just had a baby, so I was pregnant.
Don't count.
That
You
ain't my
put yourself-
excuse. It was cold. I lived on the third floor, and I couldn't get through all them keys in time. It just didn't work.
Now I've had some close calls, but thank God I didn't do it. Oh God. All right, y'all. We had a little fun before we get into our serious topic. So when we come back, postpartum bladders hit different. When I had my baby, my bladder was fine.
Moving right along.
All right, guys. When we return from this commercial break, we'll be getting into our main topic tonight. where we're talking about how black is too black. All right, so we'll be right back. All right, guys, we're back. We're back. Once again, if you have any idea of a social media podcast, you want to launch your social media platform, you want to get out there and be marketed on social media, hit up Ricky Z. I tell you, she's a one-stop shop for everything you need. We don't just say that because that's our production manager. We say it because it's the truth. Everything we need is already taken care of, from production to flyers to marketing, everything one-stop shop. Get in where you fit in and get in where you can win. Ricky Z Media is where you want to be, people. All right, main topic. How black is too black? Who's the head for this one tonight?
The kid.
Oh Lord, system and processes. Here we go.
Be
Y'all
that
put on
as
your
it
hats. It's gonna
may.
get serious.
It is gonna get a little serious, and that's why I'm glad we did something a little light. Um, y'all already had y'all fun, so now it's time my job to bring it back home. um, so it's been a lot of talk we know over the past couple of years, the things we've seen in social media, that we've seen in the news, that we've seen in the blogs, and that we may have experienced in our own personal lives about this whole endeavor that we, particularly as people of African American experience, um, encounter as it relates to our blackness. And so I want to kind of have some topics to talk some things about what makes us too black, or how black is too black, what is okay to be black, what's not acceptable with it as it remains to being black as it relates to being black, and just some of the stuff that we experience. So we're gonna touch on a lot of some very technical things. I promise y'all, I'm trying not to get too deep. I ain't gonna try to do that to y'all tonight, but we're gonna have to touch on those things to get the point across.
Mhm.
But ultimately, let's start out by that. What do y'all think? What's y'all thoughts about is black being too black, or what's too black?
Ooh,
Want me
that's
go?
deep. Go ahead. That's
Anybody,
deep.
or is
For
it a such
me,
thing?
being too black is when you take it to the nth degree. And what I mean by that is, like, black is just the end all be all. It's a superior being of everything. It's the greatest thing. Black can't mix with this. Black can't do this. Black can't do that. Black can't do that. To me, that's too much for me. My personal opinion, and maybe it's because I come from a mixed background, but for me, I think that's just when people are doing too much.
Okay, Terry, what you got?
Is it a such thing though? I don't think it's a such thing.
That's a great perspective too. I'm also of the school of thought that you can't be too black, right? We didn't say that people during other times was too white when they were doing white racist supremacist actions, but I'm also of the school of thought that just because I'm pro black doesn't mean I'm anti everything else.
Right.
I agree
Right.
with you. Like, Black Lives Matter doesn't mean all lives don't matter.
But it does in a sense. And that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. um but because but no, I say that because even in that movement, black career lives don't matter.
That is true. I mean, that's
So
not
you
true, but I
can't,
agree with what you're saying.
so you can't say, but that like I said, that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day.
Hmm.
We could talk about that a little bit in this space, but I think that's a totally different conversation. So we're gonna start on some other things. So let's start at the tip of the things. Let's start with biracial persons. Are they too black to be white, or are they too white to be black?
Mm.
Yes.
Right? Because
Mm.
we know, depending on how you look at it, you get both sides of that argument, right? So,
I,
from a Caucasian perspective, they're too black to be white. But from a black perspective, depending on where they are or where they live or their upbringing, they too white to be black. What's your
uh-huh.
thought?
Story of my life.
Really?
Because my father's
Wait a minute, hold
cousin.
on. Before you finish, I gotta get this out because our serious face is making me laugh, and I want you to think I'm laughing at you. So I just want to clear this space. But go forth and be great.
DJ, you always laugh at me. I'm used to it at this point.
I do, but I wanted to be very clear that this wasn't the time that I was doing that.
No, so my father is biracial, and so a lot of times I'm very light skinned. I'm no, let me correct that. I'm light skinned, and so
Mhm.
when I'm around certain groups of people, because of the way I speak, they was like, "Oh, you that's your white side coming out. You know, you're white." But then when I'm around the Caucasian people, they're like, "You have melanin in your skin, so you're too black. So you're not one of us, but I'm not one of them." So from me growing up during my early education, it was one of those you're too black to be white, but you're too white to be black. So I always was kind of like that loner kid until like my high school career when I became, I guess I started doing things that were typical of African Americans, like playing football, and I was a beast at it, and I was also educated. So I was became popular through that lens. That's when my African American side started. Was like, oh, you're one of us.
Okay. And Brandon, I really love to hear more about what your stance is. So are you saying no, they're not too black to be white, or no, they're not too white to be black, or is it no to both? Go ahead, Terry. What's your thoughts?
I think for me, so if I was to go around my family nowadays, they would tell me, "Oh, here she come with the white talk or talking like a white girl," because I speak proper English and the correct dialect and things like that.
Now
I
that's a
don't know
great point,
anything,
and we're gonna revisit that because I got a whole talking segment about that particular piece. But keep going.
right? So I. And it's funny you brought that up. So I was on TikTok yesterday, and there was a girl on there yesterday. She was trying to prove to people that she's mixed, and because
Hmm.
she looked like a white girl, but they wanted her to prove, so she ended up posting her daddy who's black and her mom is white. But she said she identified with the black side because of how she was raised.
Hmm.
So it just depends. I said, be you.
I agree. I also have a parent who was biracial. May he rest in peace. And so my dad chose to identify more with his black side because he didn't know the Caucasian side of his upbringing, so he automatically identified with that. But it also caused him to kind of have some self-hating motivations within himself. So he also internalized and externalized a lot of white hate, but that meant that he hated that part of himself too. And those things that he did that exemplified those things or that did that things, to kind of show where he was white. Like, but then on the flip side, he would embrace those other traits about those white parts of him that were great, like our hair, the texture of our hair, the lightness of our skin, and the advantages that come with that. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. And so
Yeah.
there are some advantages to identifying in those spaces and doing it, but also to your point that when we got to certain relatives or certain other demographics of our family units, the way we speak, the way that we carried ourselves, the way that we conducted ourselves had people feeling a certain kind of way. And it's like, well, why are you talking white? Or why are you acting white? Or why are you being this way? And it wasn't that. I see your hand. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing. So I feel like, especially for persons who are biracial, I think that's probably like one of the biggest struggles, right? Is like they're literally caught in the midst of this argument on both sides because they can't win on either side of the argument.
Hi, Ame.
Hey, I may. So I want to get in on what Brandon said, but this is one I may kind of chimed in because Brandon said I'm not about to try to act white when I'm really black. But what is acting white? Because so I went to Florida State University's greatest school known to mankind. So
In
when I'm
your
around
opinion.
certain people, well, let's go before that. When I grew up, I was a United States Youth Ambassador. So I've had dinner with 4 real presidents. Trump doesn't count. I've had tea with the Queen of England. So when you're in those situations, or when you're in those places, you have to speak proper English. I can't go to the Queen of England and be like, "What up, folk? How you doing, Charlotte?" That's not me speaking proper. Isn't acting white because that's me being professional. That's me being correct. So I don't call it acting white. That's not me acting white or acting black. That's just me being proper.
But there are some of those that will say that it's an act versus you being professional.
So for example,
And you will
if I'm
also have.
around, like if I'm
I'm trying not to go too deep into that because we got a whole nother segment to get to that we're gonna address just that particular aspect of this conversation. So I'm glad that we starting to get in it, but I gotta facilitate.
yes, sir.
So I want to get back to some of these comments because Brandon is, and I
Brandon
don't know
and
if
me,
you
I
y'all getting
may.
us in trouble.
I
yeah,
may.
they
You and Brandon getting us in trouble because y'all making us go too fast.
so let's see. Let me loop on back a couple of comments. Um, honestly, you can't help what's in your bloodline, but at the same time, is when he said that he was saying that he's not gonna act white, and that was that. And he says in response to why do you have to call it acting white, Brandon says because it's a difference between being proper and then trying to talk like them. And I don't just mean white, but anything that you are not. Don't try to be that, I guess. And he clarifies further and says he means by acting like talking, etc., or trying to fit in. Um, how you say her name, Materia?
I may.
I May says that still centers around whiteness as the norm. That's a very interesting point, and we're going to revisit that a little bit later in the show as well. Brandon says, right, that's what I mean, but just because you speak proper doesn't mean they still are going to like you either.
Absolutely true.
And then
I
I May
mean, so let's
says,
just be
this is
real
what I
about it.
do all day.
People aren't gonna like you because you woke up. People aren't gonna
Hi,
like you
Daddy.
because people aren't gonna like you because Arteria wore purple today. So you know what? Just because she wore purple, I don't like her no more. People gonna like you are not gonna like you because you're confident in who you are. People aren't gonna like DJ because he's going to get a doctorate degree and he black. That ain't what black people do. Says who? People don't like me because I'm me, unapologetically me. If you don't like me, God gave you two lips and gave me two butt cheeks. You put two and two together and tell me what you get.
All right, my dad. Hey, Dad. He says if he's
Oh,
late,
my brother's on. I gotta be. All right, let me
but
mute my
code
microphone.
switching falls directly into that. We're going to spend a substantial amount of
Yes.
this conversation talking about code switching. So thank you for bringing that up, Dad. Brandon concludes the comments by saying, "Just be yourself. That's all." And I think that's a great way to transition into my next talking point about what type of black person are you. And so I use the two examples of Angela Davis versus Condoleezza Rice, right? And we think about Condoleezza Rice and we think about her stint and what she did and the actors that she portrayed, right? To contrast her with Angela Davis, which is that stark advocate, Black Panther, Black liberationist movement figure. Are you one or the other, or are you a combination of both?
For me, it depends on what day. I could be a combination of both.
I'm sorry, we said Condoleezza Rice, so I think about the gap in her mouth.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, and I think gaps are beautiful, but that's all. When you say Condoleezza, that's all I think. I'm with Arteria. Depending on the day, I can be either or. It depends on the setting that I'm in because I believe I never lose my true identity.
Right.
But I think in order to play some games, you gotta play certain roles. Prime example is every rapper out there, right? If you see a rapper when they rapping, when they on the streets, they just hood rat thug, pants sagging below their kneecaps. But the moment they get in trouble and they go into the court of law, they got fresh fades, a crisp suit, pants around their waist, and they speak proper English.
Oh, wait, before we move on. Hey, Kay,
That's
congratulations.
exactly what I was about to
Yay!
do.
Congratulations,
Yay!
Brenda!
Woo!
Congratulations! Oh, Jesus,
Thank
that
you,
hurt.
Terry, because that's exactly what I was about to do. But my response is I'm definitely a combination of both. I have to be. I have to be because of the work that I do, but I also have to be because that's an actual fair representation of who I am. There are times when I absolutely have to be that stark, hardcore advocate and that protester and standing on the front lines and making a difference. But then there are also times, particularly as a black male in corporate America, that I have to play the role. And that's we're gonna get into that in code switching too, because that's an important piece of what I want to discuss in depth a little. But in a little first, before we do that, oh, okay. May
We
says,
gotta
but
get her on
black
the
people
show.
are
I'm
not a
loving her.
monolith. We have multiple facets of our identities, and this idea of a binary is still harmful. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. Thank you for
Well, I
bringing that
made
point on.
May does this. I May does this for a living, so that's why she's on it.
Oh, I love
My
it. This is
supporting
this is right up
sister.
my alley.
Oh
This is
Lord,
my conversation.
we have a
Y'all
female
know.
DJ.
This is
The
right in my
world is not
lane. I'm
ready.
living for this.
The
Yes,
world is
that's
not
my
And
ready.
sorority
yes,
Female,
sister.
you
and
got a
yes, you are
female
correct.
DJ and a male DJ. Lord, send me to Mars.
But yes, no, black people are not a monolith, just like queer people are not a monolith. You can't put us all into this box and say that we
Mhm.
all fit into this one category. We're not. It's That's not how we're made defined. But to that point, still trying to stay light. Let's talk about hair types. Does hair type make you too black? So let's talk about the natural hair state and the natural hair movement versus traditional European influence hair types. So perms, lower cuts, those kind of things. How does that fit into the blackness scale?
So first of all, my hair is not European. My hair is American, and just because my hair grows naturally curly and is not nappy, I am not European. I am American.
And back to my original question.
Oh Lord, have mercy. Kay, I'm gonna need you to be my alibi.
Believe, believe it or not, we get boxed by our hair types as well.
We do
Hmm.
because they're gonna say you got that N-word hair. If your hair is
And they
real
do.
kinky,
And they do.
And I mean, we've seen recently in the news and in many outlets where children have been banned from going to schools or allowed not being able to allow in sporting events or other things because they've had braids or they've had natural states of hair, they've had afros or afro puffs or anything that didn't fit that kind of traditional westernized box.
Or black people don't grow nice, long, pretty hair. We can't grow it.
Yes.
or like if I grow
Hmm.
my hair out and it gets natural, people are, oh, you must perm your hair. No,
No.
I don't. I'm sorry that my hair just does that.
I think we're making an
Hmm.
indication of our blackness. Yeah.
We do
Look,
associate hair with the indication of our
look,
I was about
blackness.
to say we do because a lot of times if you see, and I'm guilty of this, if I see
mhm.
women with big afros or like break or locks, I love your crown.
And yes, Kay, you're right. If you do go in the stores, you do see that black hair products are labeled differently. They absolutely are.
They're textured hair.
And even if you go into the beauty supply store, I don't know if a lot of females have realized that, but if you were to go into a beauty supply store and look in your bag after you make your purchase, there's samples of stuff for us to put into our textured hairs in the bags. Free samples that they've tossed in that we didn't see them toss it in there. And it's not in everybody's bag.
Hmm.
Well, it's also like if you go to a hair store on certain sides of town, you won't find textured hair inside the store.
True.
Like I only use Cantu, or I use like natural products generally for African Americans. I don't find them in certain areas, like the area I live in now. If I go to the store up the street, they ain't got I can't even get a do rag. I gotta go down the street a couple of blocks to the urban area, and that's where I
Mhm.
can find a do rag. I went to the store yesterday. I was like, "You have do rags?" No, we don't sell that here. I went down 4 blocks to that gas station. Guess what I found? A do rag. It's just like certain things we are identified for us.
I'm with you. I mean, I'd rather whether I rock a flow or 30 fro or 36 inches, I'm still blackety black black black.
Yep.
Well, why I can't rock 36 inches?
You can
How
glue
long
it
is
on.
36 inches?
You can buy one. It'll already be done. It's gonna cost you a good piece of change, but you can do
Good
It's 36
good piece.
inches. That
it.
long hair?
Out
How
long.
long is 36 inches?
You're gonna have to
Three
move it to
feet.
sit down. It's 3 feet.
3 feet.
That's a lot of hair. Your head gonna be like this, bro.
So to get to the meat of this conversation, or before I do that, y'all had any other thoughts around this particular part?
Rakia,
Ooh,
baby, I would put a B there.
yes, God.
I would say it's a
Multi-billion.
multi-billion-dollar
It is.
industry because one group of people who I can tell you pride themselves on their hair is African American women. They keep
And they
that
will
hair
pay
in
for it.
fist. Toes may look like this, but that hat is banging, honey.
And
I
they
don't
will pay
think. I
for
mean, I think, but I don't even think it's just African American women anymore. Like even if you look at the market about how we have conversations that everything is being acculturated, right? White women are getting braids. White women, they have weaves. They call it an extension, but it's a weave. So there are all of those
it. And
same
they're wearing
concepts.
functions and wigs now.
Can I
They
ask
are the
that
main
question?
supply of wigs. Like white women buy wigs in a huge abundance. They like to go to hair shows and things like that so they can find out different means and
Absolutely.
different products and all of those things. So it's not even just black women anymore.
But can I ask that question? Why do we differentiate that? What's the difference between a weave and extensions?
In my opinion, I think it's the audience. It's just like I said. When you say a weave, you instantly associate that with somebody of African American experience. But if you say you have extensions, it's still a weave, but you're just not saying it's a weave.
I'm gonna get me some extensions. Wait till next week. Y'all gonna be, hair gonna be down to my shoulders.
You're gonna
You
have your
play.
36. No, you're gonna that's
That's
12.
what
You're
I'm
gonna have
not
a
gonna
12.
do. If I have a 36, it's gonna be scrubbing the ground.
That's because you're short.
Your husband and your son.
So back on set, getting back on focus. Um, oh, good. Thank you, Ricky. I was about to read your comment. The difference between cornrows on us or boxer braids on Kim Kardashian. So back
Okay,
to that
so
whole thing about how it's the same thing, but it's acculturated, and because it's the same thing, it has with a different connotation. When someone else does it, that's not of an African American experience.
can I ask a question? Don't judge me because y'all are the judging type. What are boxer braids?
It's box
Cor-
braids. So it's like what
But
Jemiah has.
Oh, okay. Okay.
let's see. My daddy said, "Hair for women becomes a badge of honor. It's a part of validation when the compliments come." May said, "Technically, it is the application which makes the difference, but in regular conversations, it's based on race." So that was going back to extensions versus weave.
Thank you. See, and I'm a firm believer of you don't know unless you ask a question.
So back to this comment, the badge of honor thing. I it works. It's opposite for me because I don't care about you complimenting my hair, but you compliment my nails all day. I'm
Well, let's just be real, cause your nails be on fleek, baby. And when you talk and you know your
Boost the
nails are
house
good,
down. You see all of
look,
this.
I was say when Tira's nails are good, when she like, let me tell you, she made sure you know the other day when we you like I see your nails, girl. They're
But
called boxer
Rukia
braids
says
on
they're
Kim
actually
K.
called box, but
box
that
the
was
braids on Kim
in
K.
a white magazine. Okay.
So
My daddy said he was just about to say
can
nails.
we say why is it when we do something we're acting white but they aren't acting black?
You said, but
We'll
they
say
are or are not.
we'll say it in our community like Kim Kardashian, the Kardashians are acting black, but we don't put it out there that like we won't publicly say they acting black. Like they'll say, oh well, such and such is acting white.
I disagree. I mean, I don't think I think we do put it out there, but the channels in which we put that out there are different, right? And so typically we as people of African American experience are communal people. So typically when we're having conversations or we're doing things or we want to spread stuff, we spread them in our communities and our social networks. We don't go outside of those things typically to have those conversations. Much like when we think about stuff that's wrong in our communities or stuff that we want to change, we tell each other, but we don't go tell the proper authority to make the revisions or provisions that we need to make it happen. Whereas white people or any other person, I should say for that matter, they're going to talk to themselves. Number one, number two, they're going to rally. So if Becky and Sarah both feel the same way, now Becky got Sarah, and Sarah called Stacy, and Stacy called Amy, and Amy called Laura, and Laura called Tracy, and then they all went to go do whatever it was to be able to go get it done. We don't do that in that same kind of connotation.
I'm
And so
sorry,
it
just like
seems like I know where you're going with that. Let me finish my point. But we have a voice and we have power in our voice, but our power unfortunately is in our dollar, and we abuse that power and go back into a whole nother system. But again, that's another conversation for a whole nother day.
I think our power is more competitive with each other. So
Yes, cultural appropriation. Everybody want to be black until it's time to be black.
I
Absolutely.
agree with you, Terry. I think we always in competition with one another, or it's
hmm
one of those you can't outdo me, so I'm not going to support you because you can't be better than me.
yeah.
Or we always have to say who's going to be the boss. Like some communities come like in Atlanta. The majority of downtown Atlanta is owned by Jews. They come together, buy property together, and they have a committee. If the committee votes, we're gonna paint it blue, then we paint it blue. And the other people don't get up. They may be like, "Well, I wanted it green, but we voted, so we're gonna go with the majority." In our community, we come together, and it has to be, well, who's gonna be in charge before we even start the product. Putting together the plan of how things gonna run. Who's gonna be the main one in charge? I understand we're gonna have a committee, but who's gonna be the head of the committee? Why must we always have to have somebody at the head? I think it goes to that, and I'm not being biblical, but in the Bible, there's a story where they was like, every other tribe guy's a king. We want a king. And God was like, you don't need a king. You good. They said, but we want a king because they got a king. Why does somebody always have to be the head? I guess it goes to the point to blame.
I'm living for her. I need to meet her because we could have some great conversations.
She be on it.
Shit, that's based
Be
on the
on
idea
it.
of zero sum bias. There's only room for one, and your success means there's no room for me. Yes,
And that's a problem.
absolutely.
It's not competition, it's collaboration. If we were to collaborate, like this podcast, y'all, was not my doing. I had an idea and I reached out to people who I knew would support my idea. I called DJ and he was like, "What? When we doing it? What we gonna do? Who we gonna have?" I reached out to Terry. I was like, "Terry, I'm thinking about doing this." She was like, "Call me." I called. She was like, "So what's it about? What it's gonna be?" She wanted just, and I told her. She was like, "All right, let's do it. When we get started." You gotta surround yourself with people who see your vision, and instead of telling you why it won't work, they're gonna tell you why it will work. Instead of telling you how you're gonna fail, they're gonna tell you how you're gonna succeed, and not only support you to succeed, but they're gonna be there with you to cheer you on. I can't tell you how many times DJ called me and said, "Hey, don't gotta pay for this. I got you this week. I got you this month. I got it." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. This was my dream." He was like, "No, no, no. I got you. I support you. I believe in you." I can't tell you how many times me and Terry go out to eat and we fight over who's gonna pay for the food because she thinks she grown. But
I think you,
that's what support is about. And I think if we as a community came together and did that, like the way we rallied behind President Barack Obama, the way we rallied behind Keisha Lance Bottoms, the way we're going to rally behind Stacey Abrams, I think we can really do what we need to do to get to where we need to get to and make the changes we need to change. I'm sorry, DJ. I got on my soapbox. I'm gonna get
that's
off.
okay because I was sure about to say, and not to wrap it right back around to where we was going.
But our
Yes, and I think can you read her comment? And I think that's a great segue back to get us back on track.
but our society has been set up on the idea that there is only room for one. There's room for one person of color, especially in corporate America. It's no accident. Woo! That's so true.
That's you preaching good, and that's going to take us right into our next talking point about code switching. Y'all know what that concept is?
Yes,
No,
sir.
no,
No.
DJ, educate us.
I'm gonna try to do this as simply as possible, but
Remember
ultimately,
what our grandparents
ultimately,
said: everybody don't have a
I
PhD.
know I said as simply as possible. I'm gonna try, but ultimately, when we think about code switching, we typically think about how African American people typically switch how they talk based off of the spaces that they're in. But it doesn't. It's not just limited to our language portion of that. It can be our behaviors from the way that we change or style our hair, which is why I talked about those lesser things first to build us back up to this point. It could be our hairstyles to what we wear to even how we conduct ourselves, the gestures and the mannerisms that we use, and how, based upon the environments or the audiences that we're around, we change those things.
That's not code switching to me because when I'm at home, I'm not gonna sit around. When I'm at home, I'm not gonna have my shirt tucked in, wearing uh professional attire. I'm gonna be comfortable. When I'm in corporate America, I have to speak corporate American lingo. If I walk into a job in a corporate setting, I'm like, "Hey, folk, we're good." They're gonna look at me like, "Who are you?" You see what I'm
That's
saying? It to me is not code switching. That is you, and it's not just our community, but we get called out for it. That's you. You're playing the role you have to play in the settings. If you go to church,
hold that. That's a whole nother point in this. Hold on to that. I
okay.
promise you, we're gonna get to that. Arteria, any thoughts about this before we keep going? Or I talk
No,
about some other points behind this?
go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I also use this to articulate or highlight the point that when we hear certain people speak, we automatically make assumptions about what? Where they live, what their educational level might be, how much money do they make, if they may be a good person or not. And all based off of what they've said, the way that they've said it, how it's projected, the cadence that they use, the diction choice that they made. We make all of these assumptions about these individuals, right? Another prime example of code switching that's super, super important that we don't think about is that code switching could be a matter of life or death.
That is true. As a member of the alphabet community, if I go in some areas and I am representing my community, that could be me being killed.
Or even nowadays interacting with the police, right? Especially for those of us that are African American men. The choice in
Exactly.
choosing the words that we choose, the cadence that we use, the way that we do it could really mean a matter of life or death for us.
Because like I think a lot of times we talk aggressive as a people, but if a cop pulls me over and I'm aggressive, I'm shot.
As an African American male. And I
Yeah.
think that's a very important distinction. Now, we know what happened to Sandra Bland, and I'm not diminishing her experience at all. Please hear me clearly. I'm not diminishing the experience of the African American woman in this plight either. But again, to your point, if it's threatening or it's abrasive or it seems across the back, like that's it. Which brings me back to the point of laying this foundation about. So now that we know those things and we talked about some instances, is code switching really trying to fit into white culture or is it a survival tactic?
It's a survival tactic.
It's a survival thing.
Right. And I think if you be honest about it, during the Trump era, we found out a lot of our counterparts have been code switching. Where when we're at
Mhm.
work, they're like, "Hey, DJ, it's good to see you today." When they go home, they like, "I can't stand that end." You know what I mean? And during his era, it came out that hey, I don't have to switch anymore. I can just be this racist person 24/7. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's not just us, but we bash ourselves for it because we feel like there's this image we have to portray, that there's this, you know, lingo of this walk we have to walk. And I tell people all the time, that's not my ministry. That's not my story.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's important too to note that when we look behind those things, especially with the survival versus trying to fit in or being a culture rated perspective, Black professionals who reported that they had to code switch also reported higher significant rates of workplace fatigue and burnout in their positions because it's mentally exhausting to have to always navigate between these two identities based off of who is in the room, what rooms you're entering, and what rooms you're exiting.
And I agree with
See, same thing I
me.
just
I agree
said.
with you. So I love my job. I love the people I now work with. However, I'm the only raisin in this bread. So when as the raisin in this bread, I do have to act a certain way. They were shocked today when they found out Robert knows country music. Robert knows rock and roll. You know what I mean? So you do have to adjust yourself, and I don't think it's draining on me simply because I'm being myself, but I'm not being my relaxed self.
But
If that
that's
makes sense.
but that's your instance. What about the instances where it's not being that person at all? That those are the instances that I'm talking about where I have no choice but to be someone completely outside of who I am if I'm going to continue to be successful, and how emotionally and physically taxing and draining that is, on top of having to also carry the burden of understanding that I'm functioning in a space or an environment that not only does not appreciate or accept my internal values of what me as a person of African American experience appreciates about my blackness and my heritage. Not only do I have to mask that in the spaces that I navigate in, now I also have to go through this exhaustive motion of constantly switching, going back and forth and changing these things about who I am and what I am just so I can get through the day.
Well, I agree with me because you've gotten so used to doing it, it's normalized. And I think maybe that's what it is with me because, as a United States Youth Ambassador, going to a PWI, I did become that person. You see what I'm saying? So maybe I will open up and say I lost a little bit of my. No, I won't say that because my grandmother raised me to be the person I am. So I'm sorry, but I do. For some people, that would become exhausting. But I think for me, if I'm in a situation where I have to put on a facade all the time, I have to be a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation. I'm gonna remove myself from that situation.
But
I'm
I
one of
think
those
the
people who
difference
don't believe that all money is good money.
But I think the difference in even utilizing your analogy of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right, is that it wasn't this kind of always synonymous back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There was a clear and distinct instance where Dr. Jekyll was present, and then there was a complete and distinct
Hmm.
instance when Hyde was present. The two didn't intersect. I mean, they did, but they didn't. It wasn't like a 1 minute I'm Jekyll, 1 minute I'm Hyde, 1 minute I'm Jekyll, 1 minute I'm Hyde. And there was a formula, right, or a drink, or however you want to internalize that to make that transition. We're not even having that space to just be like, okay, now I got to do this. It's this instantaneous back and forth.
Again, I really can't talk to that because that hasn't been my experience. I can say that, and Kay is my witness. When we were at Coke, of course we had to walk Coke. We had to talk Coke lingo. You have to speak Coke's language. You can't, Brandon. Unfortunately, in that situation, you can't be yourself because Coke has an image that we must maintain and present.
Hmm.
You must look Coke material. So I get what you're saying, but
And I agree with
sometimes you
Amy.
lose who you are. Girl, get out my head. Sometimes you lose who you are because you put on this. You've been in this play for so long, you become the character.
Arteria, you got anything on this? We still talk the same
That's true.
thing.
Like even with me now at work, I have to talk the progressive talk. So it's like
Hmm.
even when I'm off of work, I'm still talking like that. So it's like, when do I shut it off?
Baby, you know who I talk about? My sister. I love my big sister. I do. Ebony, if you're watching, because you are a follower, I love you dearly. Call her when she's at work. You get, good morning, this is Ebony. How can I help you? But hey, babe, what's up? Oh, hey, what's up? Whoa, whoa. Where's that bubbly, wonderful person that just said, this is Ebony? Child boo, I'm at work. What's up? You need some? But she says that's what she has to do in the industry that she's in because in her office she's the only female.
Mm.
So if she
Wow.
came in there too rough, then you're intimidating. And for the African American females, I hate to say it, but you guys have it worse because you come off as the angry black woman if you're too aggressive.
Well, yes, but also we also have angry black men syndrome, right? And that we have to be very mindful of our environments, and we got to be a little bit more conscious because we got to be mindful of who was in the room, how are we going to have the conversation, was the door open, could you visibly see what was going on, is there a witness to attest that these things didn't happen? And
Yeah.
so, there are some different layers, but yes, you're correct. And in our African American women, they're automatically like, oh, they're hostile, they're verbal, they're loud, it's antagonizing, it was abrasive.
Trust me, I've seen it. Like I've seen it where she was like, I can't say too much because they've already deemed me the angry black woman. So because I didn't agree with them or the way that they talked to me, I get it. We all face it, but yeah.
And let's talk about our youth for a second. How does their blackness or being too black affect their college admission decision? Or does it?
It does and it doesn't. Let me rephrase that. It's a plus sometimes. And reason I say that is because I wanted to go to an HBCU for undergrad. That was my goal because I wanted the black experience.
Team
However,
HBCU.
hold up, because no,
No, and I'm
I
gonna tell you why I said that as soon as you're done.
I went to an HBCU and I applied, and they said, so you have a educational scholarship, so your education is paid for, then your family should be able to afford your room and board. How can you tell me what my family can and cannot afford when you don't know my family's circumstances and situations? I go across the tracks to a PWI, they say, oh, they're paying for your education. Oh, we can cover that. That's nothing.
Hmm.
So where's I wanted the HBCU experience, I was shut down because I was blessed with the educational scholarship.
And as somebody that attended a HBCU, I'm gonna contrast your ideology on that and say, unlike the PWIs, HBCUs have much limited resources for various reasons, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is I can attest for my HBCU experience. I don't know how any of the other ones go, but the very first day that I got there, you know what we did? We sat down with our course catalog and the course catalog of every other top 9 Ivy League school in the country. And you know what we did? We had to find our anticipated major and compare it with what was in our course catalog. Because what they want to do from day one was dispel this myth that there's a distinction between the institution that I'm attending and a PWI. And it was made very clear from day one. This is a university. The only distinction is your cost. That's it. And
And
so,
I won't negate that. I will
yes,
say
I
that your
had.
education and my education are one and the same because the curriculums are the same. It just was my experience being exposed to HBCU was totally different. The course catalog, ideal. But before I even gave a full, like, before they even really looked at everything, because I was raised by my grandmother. My grandmother was not a billionaire, trillionaire. She worked 2 jobs
Mhm.
just to make ends meet. For you to say, well, she should be able to afford, you don't know her circumstance. Why not offer me or let me apply for scholarships and grants versus immediately shooting me down saying, well, since this is paid for, they should be able to cover something. And I get it. HBCU's resources are limited. However, there's still resources that are out there that you can say, apply and see if you can get the scholarship, if you can get the grant.
I think you just ran across the wrong person
Yeah,
at that
and
point.
that's exactly what I was going to say. That I'm sorry that that was your experience because for many of us that do attend HBCUs, that is not the experience, and that's part of the reason why we went there. And as somebody that has that experience to contrast with a PWI experience, I appreciate my experience in the HBC because I appreciate it being seen as a person, not a number, not a check, not student. 2,366,000 out of 6 million. I appreciated being able to build relationship with my fellow students and my professors and the faculty and the staff and them knowing who I am by name. But
Right.
we getting off topic, so I'm gonna loop it back around. But a reason I brought this up was because there was a recent study conducted that said if African American students, in particularly, that applied to PWIs, which is why we're having this conversation, indicated that they had interest in racial justice, anti-racist activism, or anything from a diversity perspective, were 80% more likely to be denied admission to that institution.
Mm.
Well, I mean, I got my best African American studies from
Uh-uh,
PWI.
I'm not saying once we got there. We're talking about applying to get to that point.
Well, I can't say it because that
Correct, but
was
that's
my
that's
soapbox.
that's the current trend. So when we look at the trends of what we see now, that is what the trend is. If there's a student in high school that is African American that has a background in any of these things that identify them racially or have an interest in anything that is racial justice, anti-racism or anti-racist activities, or anything from a diversity perspective, and they are applying to a PWI, and the reviewer of that application is a person of Caucasian experience, and typically that means that they're a male, they are 80% more likely to be denied admission to that institution solely because of what they express interest
They apply to their own PWI. Go to Florida State, they'll welcome you.
Tell nobody want to go to no Florida State.
in. But
That's
I
what
mean,
Doodle going.
but let's talk about it. Does that mean that they're being too black and they're fearful of their blackness?
That doesn't mean that they're fearful of their blackness. Oh, you mean the school is fearful of their blackness? It could, because I can't speak for somebody else. It could be, for example, if someone has a ethnic name. Sometimes people won't
Mhm.
call them because of their name.
I'm one of those people. I know that struggle. That's why I learned very early to use the first initial of my name, use my middle name.
Well, so for me, your name is something I can pronounce. If your name has 47
You'd
letters
be
and through all
surprised.
48 of those are silent, and so I'm calling you and you saying your name is Erica, but it's like 15 letters additional besides Erica or Ka, and they're all silent. I'm sorry, I know. I'm not calling it. It's not because, and it's not just because it's an ethnic name, but if it's any name that I cannot pronounce, I don't like messing up people's names because I know some people, your name has a meaning. Your name was given to you for a
Mhm.
reason and a purpose, right? And some people take pride in that. I don't want to disrespect you. So if I can't pronounce your name, I'm probably not going to call unless I can pronounce your last name.
Higher edge are pushing
Correct.
to
They're moving towards blind admissions, but this was a study that was done pre-COVID, actually right before COVID kickoff. So I'm just trying to get some background on this. So, if people belong to fraternities and sororities or any other association that identifies them racially or ethnically, such as the NAACP, is that a mark of being too black?
The Divine Nine, I'm going to say in some instances, yes. Because when you say the Divine Nine, any of them, Alpha, Kappa, Sigma, Omega, nobody really knows what an iota is. But iota, deltas, zetas, AKAs, SG rows, the first thing people think of is pledging and hazing. They never
Hmm.
think about a brotherhood or a sisterhood that of educated people. They just immediately go to you. You're a beater. You have to beat people, and you have to get beaten. So that I would say could be considered something that people look at you. Because anytime I tell people I'm a part of an organization, I'm a part of fraternity, they like, oh, so they beat you. They never ask what school you went to, or
Hmm.
anything of that, or who's a part of your organization. They just immediately believe you got beat. I can't speak for other organizations, but we had people like Senator, rest in peace, Honorable John Lewis was a member of Phi Beta Sigma. William Jefferson Clinton, President Bill Clinton, is a member of Phi Beta Sigma. Kurt Carr, gospel singer, a member of Phi Beta Sigma. So you have reputable people who have some clout to their name, but all people see is hazing.
What color? Well, hey,
Right.
Being
Terry,
a
what's
part
your
of the
thoughts on this?
NAACP, to me, the
Hold
NAACP.
on, Doc. Hold on. I want to get Arteria in on this one.
Mhm.
no, go ahead, cause go ahead.
I want your feedback on this one, in particularly because everybody on this call right now is Greek. So,
Yep.
to you, does that determine your blackness? So, if you put on your application or your resume that you're a member of your sorority, do you think that that's a pin or a ding against your blackness?
I don't think it determines my blackness. I don't. I personally don't.
And that was why I wanted your opinion because I think I agree with you, but because of to contrast Doc's point, it's not a divine nine org, right? So people don't look at it in that same lens.
Mm-mm.
When I tell people I'm a member of Kappa Psi Kappa Fraternity Incorporated, they're like, "Was that one of like those honorary fraternities in college? Like you had a good GPA?" That's what it meant. Yeah, sure, because that's what we're gonna go with. If that's what you're gonna go with. But when I say Phi Beta Sigma, they're like, "Oh, that's them people that be pledging and hazing. They be stomping and all that. That's all they know us for."
Well,
And
I
I'll tell
mean,
you how
that's
many
not. I
community.
don't think that's just for the divine nine, because even in the LGBT Greeks, they think we hazing and people and stuff here too. So it's not just divine nines.
But when it comes to corporate America, where
Correct.
the Divine Nine is more prominently known
True.
because we're always in the news, especially like if you was in the state of Georgia and you say you was a member of AKA because of the lawsuit that they got at Fort Valley State, where the dean of intake
Mhm.
had them girls prostituting themselves out. The first thing they asked them was, "Oh, you had to sell your to get your letters." No, I didn't. But because that what was put out there, that's what people believe everybody have to do.
True. But I mean, they. I don't know. I guess they do the same thing with the LGBT Greeks. They saying all we doing is paying our way through. When
Mhm.
our process is nothing like divine nines, which is a whole lot. I don't know what divine nine process is like, but we're not.
Yeah,
I
a
ain't
lot
paying
of them
my way
jokers
through.
just paper.
Moving right along.
But what I was saying, DJ, was about the NAACP. I think being a member of the NAACP now is different than what it was back in like the '60s and the '70s, when the NAACP was doing the marches and the rallies. Nowadays, it's almost like being a AAA member.
Mm,
Hmm.
You just have a card that you carry that says you're a member.
yeah.
I mean, yes. However, comma, right? When you contrast that though with what NAACP means, it's racially identifiable.
It is, but again, most people
And
don't
I'm
see
not
them as
saying
a
it to
threat
say
anymore.
that but I'm saying that to say if we're having this conversation about being in spaces or being a part of organizations or affiliations that either aid this whole that you too movement or be it against it, if I go with my name being Dewan, and then I further that by saying that I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, and then I further that by saying that I'm a member of the NAACP.
Oh, now you blackity black black.
Now I'm blackity black black black, and that's what I'm trying to convey across this point is that if we have all of these things in alignment in these hypothetical scenarios and situations, if all of those things line up and they say black 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 black, are you
You look
perceived as
pro
a
black.
person that's threatening into black?
Some situations that could be seen that way. I can see how that could be seen that way, especially if you're in the Bible Belt.
Mm.
Now, you people in Chicago and New York, they're like, yeah.
I never had issues with my name.
Listen, I have issues with my name to this day.
I've never had any issues with anybody, saying my name is too black or too white.
Your
Never.
name doesn't sound either, to be honest with you.
Nope.
Most people, when they hear me speak and they see my name and they meet me, I told y'all my last boss, when he's like, oh my God, you're black. I was like, is that what this melanin means on my skin? He's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Just, the way you talk over the phone, like I've never thought, what was I supposed to sound like?
Yeah, I never had that issue.
And that brings me to my last point about being black or too black, respectability politics.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Kay. She says,
I
I
know.
have issues with my name. It's Kay Lund or Kay Lynn or Kay Lynn.
What y'all think? Y'all know what respectability politics are? Are you familiar with the terminology?
Nope.
No, DJ, educate us.
Stop being
So,
butthole.
I was just about to say, don't patronize me. But respectability politics refers to attempts by marginalized groups, in this context, African Americans in particular, to police their own members and show their social values as being continuous and compatible with mainstream values, rather than challenging the mainstream for what they see as its failure to accept difference. So ultimately, because I know y'all like,
I was
what
about
are
to say,
you?
elaborate.
What are you talking about? So it's rules and regulations that we as marginalized people impose upon ourselves that's supposed to help us fit in or better pass into what mainstream society considers acceptable.
No. So I can see that, but no. I'm
And
marching to my own
historically,
drum.
well, you don't. And I'm gonna tell you why you don't. Because we just talked about earlier about all of the things that you do that are facets of
Right.
respectability politics. You code switch, you make sure that your hair is neatly and in line. You do all of these things that we have been conditioned to do from slavery roots, right? Because it's all through a slavery perspective of teaching the people to be good Negroes so that they won't be punished and they won't be sexually assaulted and they won't be raped and they won't
Well,
be.
man.
So you learn to do these things to fall into this pattern of behavior so that it keeps you from being harmed. But we could tripulate these same patterns of behaviors because in doing that, we hinder other people from being who they are. And we shun them and we criticize them for being who they are. Just back to your point originally, Doc, about when you said, I'm not gonna go in the room and say, what's up, folks? How you doing? What it is? What's the deal? Right? That's respectability politics because we already have been told to conform. You go in there with your best face forward. You speak very clearly. You articulate. If you like me and you have braces, you over articulate and over enunciate to ensure that people can hear exactly what you are saying. Right? All of these things are facets of respectability politics.
I was about to say, I do it. I do it. I ain't gonna tell you. I do.
I don't like it when you make me think about myself, DJ. I like it when you was doing the other people panel. Come in, our tier can be ratchet and ghetto.
And then, you know, respectability politics can be used as a defense mechanism for us in particular. We use it to protect ourselves, and so that when we as a community descend upon each other, we quickly discourage anything that's seen as a defiant or deviant behavior. So, back to my point about no, you need to do what I'm doing so that you don't get in trouble too, or that you're not hurt, or that you're not harmed. Rakia, can you loop in for a little bit for this conversation? Because I know you got something to add to it.
Especially being in education.
I love that I can see her in the in the bottom. She's like, Lord, DJ, I done told you
I
ain't
know,
gonna
but
loop
that's why I'm
in.
looping her in at the end. But I know she's gonna have something to add to this piece, and y'all
Cause
have
I love it when she
important
comes
things
on
to
with
add
her
to
name
this
in
too.
trouble.
But she'll be like boom, 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 and then she gonna loop out.
Well,
But yeah,
while we
so
wait for her, we can go over some of the comments. May said, "My parents named me, and I named my daughter to not be ethnographed." Okay. Um, Kay said, "I don't DJ." May said, "I struggled." Well, we posted that one. Tiffany Haddish stresses me out for this reason. And
I can
model
see that.
minority
I
for Asians.
uh-huh,
I like what
respectability
Rakia
policy.
said though. She said we have to work be twice as good to get half as
Snap his
much.
punch. Uh-huh.
True.
That is truth
That's
because
respectability politics.
we have to. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rakia. Answer his question because I forgot.
Sorry. Oh, so that like that's respectability politics. So
Correct.
like that phrase has been around for a long time, but um, it really came to a head a few years back when an episode of Scandal actually, and Olivia's
Hmm.
talking to her dad, Papa Pope, and literally like he's giving her a real big lecture. You got to be twice as good to get half as much. Like you got to be better, you got to be beyond just to get even like your foot in the door, whereas some of them other groups don't have to do as much just to get to where they are. um Wearing suits, how they weaponize MLK
Hmm.
nowadays. That's respectability politics. Like you got to be the good Negro
Hmm.
and try to toe the line. Don't get too loud. That's the only way you're gonna get respect and acknowledgement in this country, and it doesn't get that way. Like, and when in reality, that's not how this country was formed. Our country was formed based off a riot,
Mm-hmm.
civil riots, civil
Correct.
protests.
Come through with
So
truths.
if we want to talk about what we need to do to find liberation and equity, maybe not necessarily equality, but equity,
Yes,
then
equity.
then we can't necessarily follow respectability politics because that it remind I don't know, it's just like you're too quiet, and not even just like quiet, you're really not doing, you're letting things slide and letting things go because you don't want to push the waves. You don't want to make too much noise because it is a defense mechanism for us,
Hmm.
especially when we work in spaces where it is predominantly white, and we're trying to either like stay under the radar or trying to make it further up in the world.
And then the other important component of that is that, especially from the African American experience, we hold ourselves to such ridiculously high standards in an effort to show we're not this inferior group of people that we have been made out to be all of these years. And so
Yes.
we spend so much time trying to protect and but that we eventually burn out because we can't attain these unrealistic standards in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But we put so much energy and drive into doing it.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So that's the reason I have my degree. Literally, because I was told we don't do that. That you can't do that. And so I went above and beyond to show that we can. Because I tell everybody, I didn't get my degree from me. I got it so that other African American males who are of the LGBTQIA plus community know that we don't have to limit ourselves to a high school diploma or a GED or a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. That if we want to go through the top, we can break through this glass ceiling that they've given us. Which is why when DJ said, I'm thinking about going to get my doctorate. No, we're not thinking about it. We're going to get. My aunt, I'm considering, no, we're going to get, because I want you to be in that one. I want to change that 1% to 5%. That's the first step, so that it becomes nomenclature for people to say, I'm going to get my doctorate degree and I don't have to be a medical doctor. I want that.
And and,
Except for
and
my niece, I'll need her to go get her doctorate degree. Healthcare is expensive. Uncle needs free healthcare.
stop it. But that's also that's kind of like the double edged sword of it all. Like we know deep down we know that there's no reason for us to limit ourselves, and that we've been conditioned to feel that from the moment that we were conceived all through grade school and beyond, that we've been told that we are limited to do so much. We're only
Mm-hmm.
good enough to be an athlete or a rapper,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, manual labor, when we know for a fact that Black women make up a large portion of the education,
Right.
like higher education, like we get a higher portion of higher education, um, and like we want that for ourselves. But I also think there is something in being able to not have to put on the front of I have to do more just to get by. Um,
Mhm.
and that's hard to do because you can't, because there's too many barriers to for us to be able just to be mediocre. Like we can't get by just being
Mhm.
mediocre. We can't, because that's the bottom of the barrel for us. Whereas we know folks that in other demographics that can be mediocre as hell and they'll be alright.
No, they're not gonna
Mm-hmm.
just be all right. They'll be the CEO of a Fortune
Right.
500 company, and mediocre at best. By the way,
At best. At
Terry,
But
what
to
you
best.
that
got?
degree, but some of that
Hold
comes
on,
from
hold
our
on. I
black
want to hear from
community.
Artery. Let me hear from Artery because I
So
see the wheels turning.
just to piggyback off of what Robert said, that also plays a part into your upbringing as well. Because I wasn't brought up, I was one of those ones that said, the people always say, you're gonna be just like your mom. You're not gonna graduate. You're not gonna do this. You know. So I didn't have those people pushing me to say, hey, go do this and go do that. It took me 30 something years to realize that I can do anything I want to do without having the people, and still have the people in my ears telling me that I can't do it. Then now I have somebody to prove wrong. So my daughter, my oldest daughter, she taught me a valuable lesson because I push her all the time, do this. So I'm pushing her to do more than what she needs to do. Just like y'all just said, we do more, we twice as hard for half as much as we. I'm pushing her to do more, but she taught me that I don't have to do that much to get where I need to be. So she taught me that.
Hmm.
So it, eh, I'm kind of on the fence about both parts.
Hmm. Go ahead, Doc.
I was saying that in our community, a lot of times we hold ourselves down. We are the quickest ones to bash everybody else's dreams because the crab in the bucket mentality. That's why, y'all, my grandmother was my biggest cheerleader. My grandmama was like, every degree I got, she said that's her degree. Because she went to these
Hmm.
schools and she got these degrees. Because she says, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't be here. Because she always told me, I have people who make good money and stay in the hood because this is where I grew up. This is where I'm from. I don't want to leave where I'm from. Why can't we leave from where we're from? Why can't we grow? Why can't we go to the upper echelon communities and get a house and be that change? Why can't we be the one to say, why do we have to stay in the ghetto? You know,
Well, we can, but then we also know that there are some structural and institutional barriers that prevent us from being able to do that. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. It sounds good on paper, and yes, we know that there is an absolute attainment barrier there. But for all of us that's present, we're in a different economic background, we're in a different educational background, so we understand that things. And to our own privilege, we have a level of privilege and access to things that other people in those areas don't. And even for us, still, there are still structural and institutional barriers that can prevent us from doing that. And after being pushed and prodded and downtrodden for so long, you just say enough is enough. Like, we already had this historical experience of extreme trauma. And now I'm supposed to continue to go through that when we supposed to made it, right? Me having this master's degree means we made it. Right? In theory. That's what that's supposed to mean. But that's not the case. That's the mentality that we owe the good, but I personally disagree. Okay, tell me a little bit more about we owe the hood. Tell me a little bit more about that in the comments, Daddy.
I was just about to say, elaborate on that a little bit.
no, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, brother. But what he's saying is when they say we owe the hood, that we have to stay there because the hood took care of us, so we gotta take care of the hood. Like
Or
the
I
let's
just
hood.
give
want
back.
I just want to hear him say
Uh,
it.
but my thing is I don't mind giving back because I'm not one of those people who believe I've made it, so I leave you behind because I'm up here now, you're still down here. I'm the person who says if I made it, let me reach down and help you out. I'm not gonna give it to you. Hear me clearly. If I become a billionaire, I'm not gonna give you $1 billion, but I'm gonna tell you the road you can take to get to where you want to go, and I'll help support you in that
Or
area.
take or a road. And that's exactly my point about what I'm saying, because our privilege and our role and our experience is not going to be the same path for somebody else. But I can direct you to
Right.
the fork. I can direct you to the path and say you can go this way and do this, or you can go this way and do this. But I can't tell you to take the path that I took because that was
Right.
my journey.
And that's
Right.
our problem. That's a lot of our problems. We want to go, we want to know exactly what you did to get to where you are versus adapting our own path. So we are, some of us still have this microwave mentality
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
that we could just put it in and put a timer on it and it's done. No, it takes, it's work, it's process, and you have to be willing to put in that work. And that's, for me personally, that's what I fell short at because I wanted it to happen quick. And I realized that it happening quick doesn't always mean a good thing.
I completely agree with you. That's why I have an issue with anybody who has an honorary degree. Because to me, I did the work. I stressed out. I got gray hairs from doing a dissertation defense. How you doing? I can't tell you how many times I want to go to prison for threatening my doggone professors. You see what I'm saying? But you just say, oh, they just gave me a degree, call me doctor. No. I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma. I got brothers and I got frat. If you signed your name on a dotted line, you my frat. You did not go through what I went through. You do 12 weeks, 6 days, 1 hour and 34 minutes. Then I will call you my brother.
I like
That's
the
it.
comment that Damien said, I give back constantly, but I'm not going to be made to feel guilty for moving to a nicer area, sending my kids to a better school, and taking better opportunities in other areas. That is the story of my life. So, if I was to go around my family, which I rarely do, because of the comments that they make, that, oh, because I live about 45 minutes away from Atlanta. And so they all, every time I go down there, oh, you talk so proper. Your kids are so proper. You living up there in the white neighborhood. You live so far away. First of all, I do not live in a white neighborhood. I live in a predominantly Hispanic area. And I'm sorry I chose to teach my kids a proper dialect and to speak proper English. And my kids are not even in public school. They're in homeschool and have been for years. So I get talked down on all the time about how I'm raising them and where I live at. And I give back all the time too because I know where I came from.
Hmm.
And see, that's how you help people out. I know where I came from, and you come up because the same distance is from your house to their house. It's from their house to your house.
Mhm.
The
Hmm.
same opportunities I was afforded, you can be afforded those same opportunities, but you got to get off your butt and make the move.
Yeah.
Jump in, Rakia. Jump in.
So,
I see you.
so one thing that I love to see on social media, particularly on like Twitter, where or even TikTok, where there's some kind of like cultural instance situation that feels like it's very collective for us in the Black community. That's one thing I love about Black culture. But there's also times that we have to talk about how it's okay for us to stray from what's expected or what everyone else has had to do to take care of their family, take care of themselves. Whether it's you move out of the neighborhood, you decided to parent your children differently, homeschooling, conscious parenting, choosing not to spank your children, um, giving your children autonomy to say, I don't want to hug Auntie so and so. I don't know them like that. Like, so there's a lot to say about what we have as a collective community and what a lot of us have decided to take on um in these last couple of generations because we have technically all somehow grown up the same. We realize some of those things were not okay. The things that we have done as a people because of generational trauma that we know aren't okay, and we want to push back on that. And it's hard when we talk to some of our elders and they're just like, well, that's how we did it. That's how I raised some of y'all. Okay, well, just so y'all know, like, I'm not 100% okay. Like, I'm on antidepressants, I'm in therapy. Like, so let's be real about it. Like, some of these things that we have gone through as a people are not okay. Things that we have done to survive and be able to sustain ourselves in society are not okay. And so it's okay for us to push back on those things.
And that's a great segue into our final thoughts because I'm looking at the hour. So let's start to wrap it up. I'm going to go through the comments and we're going to get right into it. Damien says, for instance, I'm fully in support of gentrification, but the quote unquote woke and the quote unquote reluctant want to downplay it. In most of our black communities, we don't or won't put the money or work into upgrading our neighborhoods, but look down at those who will. So
Absolutely.
I
That
think
is
that's
so
a great
true.
transition into our final thoughts. So, when is it okay to be black, just not too black? Wrapping up, Arteria.
Why why did I know you
I
was
was
gonna
torn between you and Rakia, so I was going to.
why did I know you was gonna start here? Final thought. Was that a question I have to answer?
Just your final thoughts in this. Just that
Oh.
was my no, that was just my whole summation of the entire conversation. Was it's okay to be black as long as you're not too black.
My final thought is don't mask yourself for nobody. Be you and be authentically you. Because what's supposed to be recognized will eventually be recognized.
Clean and concise.
I'm
I
gonna
like
preach that.
it.
And not give you credit.
And not give you
And
credit.
won't.
And while you stealing, come on, what's your thoughts?
Who, me? Oh.
You're the only one who steal and
Um,
don't get credit.
Right.
my thought is this: be you. I'm joking. My thought is this: be the person you are, but be who you need to be in the spaces you need to be to get where you need to be. Sometimes you gotta play their game to beat them at their game, and that's my final thought. Cause that's but that's my final thought. Be you. If
Rakia,
they
you
say
got
you
something?
too black, if they say you're too black, be blacker. Radio says slow it down. I just go faster.
You done now?
I'm done now.
Because you said
Thank you,
that's my
babe.
final thought, and then you loop back in again, so I was
Sorry,
confused.
y'all know pastors. We say I'm about to finish several times.
That's why I'm like, are you sure,
Yes, I'm done.
Rakia?
I'm gonna take a little bit longer because I'm the producer. I can do that. But so as someone,
Period.
so it's weird to think about. And for me, growing up as a child, I went to majority predominantly white institutions and not necessarily coming into their blackness until later on in life. Like blackness and feminism, so in this case womanism, um later on after having my first child. And so I had I have a lot of thoughts on a lot of the things that we've talked about, particularly like respectability politics and things like that. But at some point, you have to be yourself in the way that is, you don't have, you can't tiptoe around other groups to make them comfortable. Not anymore. We're done doing that. You can be yourself. We can still be a part of our culture. A lot of our culture is the culture, and it's our right to claim it. Um, and so I'm ready to not hide. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm not ready. I'm ready to not hide.
All right, and my final thoughts for this evening is it okay to be black? Absolutely. Do I think it's a such thing as too black? Maybe, maybe not. I think where we do have some issues is when it's toxic. And when we're perpetuating instances of toxic masculinity and what that means to be black, toxic femininity and ideas of what that means to be a black female, toxic ideas around sexuality, sexual orientation, and sexual identity, I think that's an issue. And even toxic ideas about what our identity should and should not be. I think that's when it becomes problematic. I think as we have very clearly discussed there are instances that we have to navigate through things, and unfortunately for us as a people who have been oppressed, that is the plight that we have been given to be able to survive in a country that we built that wasn't built for us. The irony in that. So and much like Rakia, as somebody who did come into the full fold of their blackness much later in their development, I now can appreciate both sides of those facets of my identity, and I can see those things and how they contrast and how they work together. But ultimately, I'm all about, I am not ashamed of the culture that I bring. I'm not ashamed of the parts of me that I bring to the table. It is those experiences that make my perspective unique. And it's that experience that brings me to certain tables and open doors for me that other counterparts don't have access to. So, I'm black and I'm proud. And that's it for me.
All right, guys. Thank y'all for joining in for another week of No Clue. Remember, if you would like to advertise your business on this platform, send us an email, nocluetheshow@gmail.com. If you have a show idea or topic you want us to talk about, send us an email, nocluetheshow.com, nocluetheshow@gmail.com. If you want to give us some feedback or tell us how cute I am, send us an email at nocluetheshow@gmail.com. If you want to donate to the show, send us an email at nocluetheshow@gmail.com. We'll let you know how you can do that. If you have a podcast that you want to get started and you want to reach out to Ricky Z to talk to her about some business, you can email us at nocluetheshow@gmail.com and she will be in touch with you, or you can email her directly. In case you don't know how to get in touch with us, nocluetheshow@gmail.com. Follow us on all your social media platforms. And do me a favor, guys, give us some show topics. We got a whole nother season we planning.
Hey, sus, thank you for coming.
And what DJ said, you're welcome. All right, guys, we'll see you guys next week, same
Later.
time, same channel, for another episode of No Clue. Because when you think you have life figured out, you realize you have what? No
No
clue.
clue.
Peace.